Hi, everyone. This is Norman Kochenak here for Eyes on Cricket. I've been away for a few days. We had a session only recently. We talked about the World Test Championship, about Bancroft. Well, there's a lot more to be talked about there. Today's show, I can see official sigh is there. This is going to be epic. Krish Patak agreed with you. The reality is we've got only one person on the moment. We'll pick up. We'll have a look here. So we have a situation where there's a lot of discussion. I've seen a lot of discussion from the New Zealand players. Kyle Jamieson talked about how great it was to be with Virat Kohli. And obviously Will Young, one of the New Zealand batters, the batting all there. Things are looking very positive for the so-called World Test Championship. The World Test Championship seems to be at some sort of a peak of activities. It's today, May 20th. May 21st, of course, is not tomorrow, which will effectively night time very soon. We're only just under 4 weeks away to the actual World Test Championship, which will be great to see. Himanshu Chaudhary's here. Hi, Norman. Dick Shunt, Norman, I know what you want, Dick Shunt. You're not getting any. Okay, so you can see the seawall behind me there. We're waiting on a few people to join us. It might be a bit of time. I've got a lot to talk about, especially from the Australian cricket perspective. You would have seen the ridiculous, shambolic approach. We talked about it a little bit already. Just seems to be not going away. Everyone's from Jeff Lemon. That's great comments. Jeff Lemon Guardian has got his own podcast or live stream as well. And with Adam Collins, we've got Jared Kemper making noise. Peter Lawler, Andrew Webster. Now, Andrew Webster's talked a lot about the reality of Dave Warner will have a lot to talk about, potentially, not now, but in his retirement, about this whole Sandgate, which is now about 3 years ago. It raised its head again this week with Cameron Bancroft, in his stupidity, making a comment in one of the articles and one of the discussions about, he wouldn't be surprised if the 4 players, who wink, before the bowls would have seen the ball in their hand or would have seen the marks or would have known something was going on. Well, even if they did know, what were they to do? They could bring the ball to the attention of the umpire, perhaps, but Lyon, Stark, Cummins and Hazel are not responsible for this decision. At least it doesn't appear to be any credit behind that at all. Clearly, Dave Warner was the ringleader. Clearly, Steve Smith had full knowledge of it and condoned it. May not have liked it, but condoned it. And Cameron Bancroft was the person to do the dirty work, but he was caught. Look, then you have Adam Gilchrist coming out and saying, it's probably happened before everywhere in different teams and different in Australia or overseas. Right? May well be right too, but that matter was 3 years ago. Let's leave it lying there. It's my thoughts. But then you got Michael Clark coming out and saying the bowl's probably here as well. A whole lot of noise, and then there's some drama around the team that's been selected to go to the West Indies, and some dissension apparently around Dave Warner. Maybe some further comments being made. Michael Slater and his stupidity, his shambolic, idiotic. There's blood on the hands there of our Prime Minister. Well, he's suspended, as we know, went to Maldives and then via Kuala Lumpur on an Air Seychelles airplane. God knows how an Air Seychelles plane has been ordered to go through the Maldives to Malaysia and here. I've got no idea when the rest of the people are actually suffering. One person's died. There's been a few issues around that for sure, but the repatriation flights are now starting again on May 15th. The Prime Minister had no choice but to do that. He may not have liked it, but he had no choice. And we can't blame him for it at all. We can't blame him for it at all. Only for 2 weeks, for God's sake. People have been stuffing around in the other crew. Yeah, some people. Now, I know a girl in particular, her name is Derailed. She's in Chennai, and she's pleading me to help her. I'm trying my best, but there aren't that many repatriation flights. As we heard, only 140 were on one flight, and 70 were knocked off based on their COVID positive results, and hence it was a lesser flight, and that's the problem. But apparently there's some organised to go through Darwin, as we know, but also a handful to Perth, and even to Adelaide, maybe to Sydney. There's a few going to be going on, which is good on it. I'm glad for them because it's diabolical in India, as we all know. But Adam Gilchrist, I don't think he meant any harm, but he tried to be more generalist in saying, oh, yeah, there's problems all over the place, and it wouldn't be surprised if bowlers knew or whoever knew. It's not really saying that the matter 3 years ago has to be re-raised and Cricket Australia has to go deeper and find more. I don't believe any of that. It's just stupid. Those three players were dealt with. Warner is no longer going to be a captain. He should have been captain of the Sunrise Hyderabad. That's another story. I've talked about that before. Bancroft is just not good enough to play, I'm afraid. He's on the test squad. He might be floating around the short version of the game, but he's not a test player anymore. Bad luck. He didn't play well enough. Okay, he got bumped on a ban on the issue, that's fine. But that's not the point. He's not playing well enough. Steve Smith is certainly back in the squad and playing relatively well and is pledging to be the future captain. And somehow Tim Payne's come out recently and said, oh, yeah, he'd support that. But it looks like Tim Payne's going to be there for the Afghanistan test in November in Hobart, being the ground where he is from. Well, at least the state where he's from. A monumental effort to play Afghanistan in an inaugural match in Hobart, and he's the captain. That'd be a great publicity component to it. And then ultimately you've got the 5 tests happening after that. We know that now that Brisbane, Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney having the 4th test, and then in mid-January we've got the Perth test. So Perth will now have 2 test matches, one for the girls and one for the boys. The girls will play on the WACA. I believe that's sometime in September, October. I can't remember the date now. That's an actual test match, not an ODI T20. It's a test match between Australia and India. India are also playing, I believe, another test match very shortly as well against, I think it's England. In England. So great, 2 test matches in a row. And I think Australia play England, I'm pretty sure, again in a test match. So there's quite a few going on. And that's great to see. I applaud that they're playing test cricket women. Why aren't women able to play test cricket? Okay, the crowds may not be there necessarily at the moment, but they deserve the same opportunity. I mean, the Sri Lankans have played 1 test match, one in the whole time as a country. Way back at the beginning where I think Chamini Sinaratne played and Rose Fernando, a few people played. But that's it, 1. I think South Africa's played 1 or maybe 2. India hasn't played many more than 15 years since the test has been played. So someone's listening. And it's good for women's cricket because women's cricket is growing. Men's cricket, unfortunately, is not growing. Men's cricket is at the moment not growing. It's not necessarily stabilising, but a fairly loose word, but it's not growing. But women's cricket is actually growing, not just in Australia, where it's a stronghold, especially here in Sydney, but around the world, to all countries, like Vanuatu's to Peru's to Venezuela, all over the place. So really, it's a massive, massive bonus for them to be able to strive to play test cricket at a level, albeit 4 days, it's effectively 5. We don't play 5 days test cricket anymore anyway because we don't even last that long. But so, official side, what your thoughts are, official side? I'd like to see what your comments are. Does Warner have, as Warner said anything now, well, Andrew Webster, who's a great writer, a lot of time for Andrew Webster, a great bloke actually too, had him in my car a few times. He's a tremendous guy, good rugby league knowledgeable person, a great commentator, great person on TV, a lot of time for Andrew Webster. He come out with it and said, well, maybe Warner has about time he did say something and not leave it to retirement. But I think that Warner may be very clever and not do that because it's going to open up another can of worms that may be there that's quite necessary. But he has had some dissension going on recently. There's the wound between, I think, he and the 4 bowlers. There's Cummins, Stark, Hazelwood, and Lyon. Bit of talk about that. Are they too money driven? For something, Iran is asking, Oh, they should not even and only play against England in the road times. Shouldn't they? Should well, well, I totally agree. They should play everybody. There should be none of this three-team business. Play Afghanistan. I applaud they're playing Afghanistan. That's a great thing. Maybe they're not the best quality team, but great. Give them a go. They should be playing Bangladesh. Should play Bangladesh now. Bloody. Everyone's going to South Africa, Sri Lanka's going, and Bangladesh will go to the West Indies. They're playing cricket there. We should have played South Africa early in the year in South Africa. Mind you, when there was money involved, every Tom, Dick, and Harry went to bloody India to play IPL, didn't they? And Michael Slater, blood in your hands. You idiots. I'm really ticked off with you. That was so stupid. It was meaningless. I'm in Sri Lanka having Morley having a cocktail. I was suffering. Chris Gale summed it up beautifully with his $200 pizzas and his champagne, and partying on in his suite, having Chris Lynn turn up from next door, and they're all having a great time. And apparently Slater and whatever the physical is, quite frankly, they had it pretty damn good. Why they were allowed to come back into Sydney on this Air Seychelles airplane was beyond me. But obviously IPL paid for it. I get that. The money was there. I get that. They can spend 20 grand on airfare with the average person. Can't spend 200 or two grand. I get that, but be careful of perceptions or everything in any sport, and it's probably done some damage to cricket in Australia. I think this whole thing. I mean, I'm waiting for my Palmy Army group, Pat and Paul and Sam there in the Gold Coast, to talk to me tomorrow or the next few days about their Aussie point of view. But yeah, there's a bit of a mess though. Very much just Justin Langer has been quoted in the paper. I've got quotes in the paper of him saying he's going to be there to create some harmony again. Well, he's going to take a big effort. Justin Langer's got to do a lot of work there. I think Moses on Reeks needs to be considered the test squad. That's who I would bring back in. Even Dan Christian. Aaron Finch should be captaining Australia. He doesn't one day too many, and he's got the room going. That's only if Tim Payne's not going to captain. But it looks like Tim's going to be there until the Ashes end. Maybe will be his swan song. Fair enough, he deserves it. He stepped into Australian cricket when those idiots took care of that Sandpaper case, which is now lingering again. Why would you bring back Smith right now, and when Warner and they got Gilchrist and Clark on the sidelines, the bowlers complaining and Bancroft carrying on like pork chops when they do Ashes Test series on? I wouldn't even contemplate any of those three getting in any captaincy role at all. I don't care whether they were the ones that did it or not. They shouldn't be there. It's just there's too much going on there. Anyway, the reality is there's some issues still in the camp, and they're apparently even considering resting Pat Cummins and Dave Warner from this West Indies series that's just about to come up. Interesting. I don't know why they need to be rested, but anyway, maybe a family decision, which I respect. Certainly, no issue there. Then they've got a fairly big series, World Cup, then Afghanistan, and then the Test series against England, and who knows what else we'll have in between. There'll be probably a fair bit going on. A lot of people repeating their questions. A lot of people writing in Hindi. Well, as I was just saying, it will be interesting. Afghanistan, as far as all reports, are pretty good. I mean, why not? Why not? We've got to give people an opportunity to play. There's no reason whatsoever why we shouldn't. Now, tomorrow, Chris Fern and I will have an Aussie and a Pom. Now, episode 14 will take place. Maybe a little bit earlier, but watch out for that. So we'll have that, and we'll have the Palmy Army with their discussions. But today, I thought I'd come on, and the scandal's reunited, or it has been reunited. It's all over the papers yet again. Whether they should delve into the case, Cricket Australia have asked Cameron Bancroft to come and talk to them. What for, really? Bancroft, 3 years later, has got sour grapes because he's not being picked for the Australian side, so he's starting to bicker and claim the bowls, pointing the finger at the bowls. Well, you idiot, you had the damn thing in your pocket. You used it. You got caught. You deserve it. What are you talking about? Don't blame everybody else. Okay, you were told by Warner to do it under Smith's guidance. Well, you're an adult. Wake up to yourself. You're playing for your country. You know that was not, maybe you were told that was the thing to do. Fair enough. But then either do it properly, which is not really a thing I should be talking about, or don't do it at all. And don't make out that, don't blame other people when you call it. Very stupid. Sandpaper, for God's sake. What the hell? What's wrong with the old rubbing the ball against your pants? Just let it deteriorate normally. Anyway, it's just embarrassing. I don't know why I keep going back to the topic. It makes me very annoyed. Again, my opinion is not even a matter of opinion on the scandal. The fact is, it happened 3 years ago, whenever it did. Well, I can't remember the exact dates, but about 3 years ago. Maybe even longer now, actually. I'll have to check the dates. But they've dealt, the Cricket Australia at the time dealt with the bans pretty well. I think at first there was a few stumbles, but in the end it was okay. They gave Warner a year, they gave Smith a year, they gave Bancroft less time, but he never got back because his performance wasn't good enough. The bowlers weren't involved. Then you saw the coach Darren Lehman go, and then you saw that the real big sledgehammers come with Sutherland resigning and Pat whatever his name is, Pat, the bloke from the union. I prefer not to worry about him. He's not important now. He also left, and there was a few other changes. But beyond that, one of the media managers went recently, but that's another reason we won't go into that, will we? He went as well. So there's quite a few that are gone. The reality is that they had a good shake-up, and I think they've learnt their lessons, let's hope. And except for Dave Warner's efforts in the IPL, that most of them have learnt their lesson. Bancroft's bickering away. I mean, he was probably cornered with a question, might be, but he should have just left it alone. There's no point. If he thinks there's a point, maybe he's got a bit of a grind, axe to grind there, maybe. But Steve Smith shouldn't be captain at the moment, I'm afraid. It should stick with Champagne now. I think it's almost sealed the deal, really. Langer will keep Payne in there at least until the end of the Test series. And then maybe Champagne can gracefully retire. That's what his plans are. Now, Dikshan Anand, I cannot answer your question, so I'm not going to be able to give you what you want, and you know that. It's a silly question to bring up. Michael, so when you say Michael, you mean Steve Waugh. Steve Waugh. So that India versus England is not important to them. What is your point? India versus England is important, very important. So is Australia and England. So is New Zealand and England in the World Test Championship. It is important. It should become important. We need a final. It's most disappointing when you realise that now we've got a situation where if there's a draw in the World Test Championship final, that both teams share the trophy. Well, that's not quite the way it should work. If you make it first past the post, as opposed to a final victory, it was a draw, then the team who was ranked higher should get the Guernsey. This is the first one. We'll learn from it. And we should learn from it. All teams should be evenly poised into the next series. I'm not saying it wasn't this time. Look, it was the first go. So if there's any teething problems, just accept it, guys. We can't have it perfectly. They worked it out statistically. New Zealand play India in the final. New Zealand have got a very strong bowling attack. Batting side's pretty good too. And then you've got India who are strong all round. And I mentioned, I think on the previous night, my concern, my belief is that New Zealand will win. I hope India win, but I'm afraid New Zealand probably will win. They're going to have 2 Test matches under their belt. I think there's I heard Burma Majunda earlier today talking about there be 4,000 people allowed as crowd at Southampton, GS Ball or Rose Ball. That will mean hopefully 4,000 Indians or thereabouts, which will be great. It'll create an atmosphere, create some support, give India a bit of encouragement. Wonderful. I hope there's more. Then on top of that, you've got India not really at full strength. What I mean by that is probably they've certainly got players that are coming back into the side that on paper would make them somewhat full strength, but they have to be fit. Sharma, there's a question mark. Ishan Sharma's a question mark. There's a question mark on Bumrah even as well. Jadeja somewhat. Ashwin certainly as well. Then you've got some of the New Zealand players. I think Ross Taylor's got a bit of a twinge, but I'm sure he'll play. He won't miss on this much, I'm pretty sure. So I agree with you. I'm really waiting for this to come alive again, especially the Test match even more. I think you're right. That's where cricket is at. Test cricket is always the way to go. SCG 11, there we go. So him, Archie, how can the Ashes Test have only 24 points, and Bangladesh for Afghanistan 2 had 60 points. Big blunder by them. Well, in all fairness, we have to think of the fact maybe we're giving them the potential to strive for higher honours. So maybe giving them extra points or give them some sense of development. Maybe they're going to strive harder. I don't think that's necessarily about it. If that's what they've done, giving the lower teams more points, but it creates a slightly more competitive competition. Maybe that's what it is. Now, New Zealand might pummel India in the World Test Championship. I don't think they're going to pummel them, but if New Zealand win the toss and they elect to bowl, they send India in the back, and India starts to nick off the Bolts and the Southies and the Jamisons and even Wagner, then they're going to be in a bit of trouble. Yes. The reality is that the Indian batsmen, and I'll say it again, technically are magnificent. But when a ball moves, when a batsman is committed to a shot, when they're a good batter, they still get the edge. And that's the problem that happened in Australia with the 36 all out. Hazelwood and Cummins were on song, got the ball that moved that very slight amount, as New Zealanders do, and they took the ball out for 36. It wasn't New Zealand, it wasn't India necessarily batting badly, because look, India won the series then, as we know. So India batted particularly well, but that 36 was a misnomer or an aberration because they nicked all those balls. If you go through the top order batsmen who are very good quality batsmen, as Sharma, Gill, do nick the ball. Pujara is a good leader. He'll be the one to survive that. Rahane and Kohli also pretty consistent nickers when the ball is good, and you can't knock them for that. They've got the ability, even when the ball moves, to still get an edge on it, which is a sign of some batting ability. They're the four that are going to suffer, and Pujara's the one that'll have to be the backman. So here we got some points. Should there be action? Should be points for away series, away wins? I would think there should be. If that happened in Asia subcontinent, then how foreign media would react? I have to agree with you. It may have been more explosive. There would have been life bans, perhaps, for someone like even the match fixers, as we call them, the Danish Canarias and the like, and even South Africans, and we would ban them for life. Well, yeah, we didn't exactly ban them for life, did we, in the Australians? But we should have made it clear that they shouldn't be captain again. Steve Smith and Warner's got that. He will not captain at all ever again. But yeah, that's the issue. Perhaps it could be a bit stronger, maybe. So a series has a max of 120 points. Divide that with the number of games. 2 tests means 60 each. 5 games means 20 points. I'm not sure of those facts. Official side, I'll say that you've done some homework on it. I'll grant them. We'll see whether that's what the case is. So, what do you think? Why there is a decline in good opening batsmen? Only as perform at home chest. Well, one day in T20 cricket's had some effect on traditional test batsmen who grind out an innings. There's a fair bit more dashing going on from the openers. Hence, they're not on their home conditions. They play either too late or too early, not under the nose, they let balls go. A traditional good test batsman lets the ball go, which may be boring, but it's traditional and it's good. That's probably the reason. So, anyway, yeah, okay, I'll get your point. Yep. Okay. Tell me your T20 11 for the World Cup. Are you saying the Indian team or as an overall team? I would argue that, well, the Indian 11, again, they're going to stick to some consistency. Sharma will probably open with, it's a really hard one. Sharma with Kohli, they keep saying they're the two that open the batting. And then you'll get, in that 3, you'll get a bunch of players. You could get Nishan Sharma, Sky in there. You might get a number of those sort of players. KL Rahul might figure in that team as well. Punt will be in that squad. It's interesting to see what 11 because Pujara Rahane won't be. We know that. Agarwal won't be, and Vihari won't be. Pretty sure. Well, he didn't play that bad in the short version, did he? It's really hard because then you've got so many to select. I can mention any number of players. I think you want to know the Australian T20 11. Okay. Oh, gee, that's a hard one. You'd have to. Aaron Finch is going to continue to be captain and will be the opening batter. Pretty much sure that will be the case. And well, if Warner keeps his mouth shut and nose clean, he'll be his opening partner. And then you'll have, Maxwell will figure on that side. I hope Dan Christian does. Moses Reeks, I hope they all figure on that side. Steve Smith will probably be given a reasonable Guernsey. Labuschagne seems to be by default the person I'm going back to as well. That's a pretty good batting squad. Then you'll have keeping wise. Alex Carey seems to be the one ahead of Matthew Wade who can keep, although, no, Payne won't get in there. Then you got the bowling attack of, you'd probably still see Hazelwood and Cummins in there with perhaps Zampa as the spinner, a combination of Stoinis or a Reeks or something like that maybe in there as well. That's what I would say. Yeah, why does quality of Test cricket decline day by day? Well, first of all, they're not playing enough matches. That's one thing. The amount of state-level matches, which is in our case the Sheffield Shield or the Ranji Trophy or county matches, probably have been in a decline as well. A lot of the players who play the Test honours are not playing in those matches. They did in Australia this year a little bit, but that's where you need to get your grounding and actually develop, and that's where it's lacking somewhat. Lack of match practice. And people have versions of the longer versions of the game have become less attractive, not to the older generation like me. We will always love it. The Indians will love it as well. But there's a new generation who wants shorter format, T20, 50 over, and even T10 in some cases. And even in the case of England, with the new format, they're trying out the 100, which is effectively 20 overs with 5 ball overs. So, but as Abhishek Maul, the quality of Test cricket has declined. So you just can't have the same. You can't. It's quite natural for the actual peaking, like in the 70s, we had some amazing Australian players, 80s, 90s, amazing West Indian players. Then beyond that, we've had a mixture of Australia and now India doing very well. But Australia is not dominating. It's not there. That's a pity. But there's been South Africa is in a mess. Very sad state of affairs there. New Zealand's reasonably strong. India's monumentally strong. So yeah, there's still hope, still promise. I wouldn't knock it. So Ray's saying Finch, Warner, Wade's not playing. Smith, Maxie Stones, Agar's in the mix here. Cummins, Zampa, Stark, Jai Richardson. Looking good, but Wade's not there. Almost certainly no Wade. That would probably mean that Labuschagne might be in there somewhere. Agar seems to be getting a nod, yeah, but I'm not sure whether he'll be ahead of Zampa, and Hazel would probably have to be in there somewhere as well. Yeah, okay, so the point system, it's not very serious. Yeah, but I don't think, if they thought it out, they've got to give as much as much of their possibility to the lesser countries, and I don't think that's a bad thing. If they're rated lowly, they win their matches, they get bigger points, because quite frankly, if they're lowly ranked, they're not going to win many matches. So we've got to incentivise them to try and knock off the top nations. So I see nothing wrong with it. Left arm spin in India. Agar would have to be okay. I still know that Agar's bowling that well, but I guess he's our early choice at the moment. He can bat. That's for sure. Because he got his first things he had in England. I think it was at Trent Bridge. He got 99 or something. In fact, I was there for that, and it was quite a fairy tale victory performance for him. But it's funny how they were disappointed when he got 90 on and not 100. Well, he still scored 90 on. I think we forget how significant that is. So if he scored 90 on in the first match, the Test match, if he meant to be an all-rounder / spinning all-rounder, well, there's no problems. Now, Matthew Wade is not going to play in that level again. If anyone's going to play it to me, Alex Carey, that would be my summation there. Agar is Himanshu Chaudhary he can bat. As I've said to you, that for the very first Test match against England in England, he got into the 90s. I'm pretty sure it was 99. Got out, which is quite devastating, but not really. People have to get over the fact that scoring 99 is, a big disaster. It's not. Don Bradman's batting average was 99.94. Does that make him not good because he didn't get 100? Of course not. It was brilliant. Well, if Josh Philippe, no, I think he's still raw. Okay. It will be an epic match for India to win the World Test Champions against New Zealand, but New Zealand's going to come hard to win it because they lost the 19 World Cup. Yeah, they certainly are going to be a bit sore about that. New Zealand lost a lot of finals. That could actually work in India's favour because that choking capability is certainly there for New Zealand, I'm sorry to say. But you'd have to think New Zealand on paper should be favourites. But, India, even though they're not practiced, they make it. I mean, they'll get their act together. You just don't know. So next time, and I'm not going to ask you a question because I'm not going to ask about, you know what my question is. You know what the question I know. You're not going to get anything from me at that time. Okay. So, Shaz, it's going to be a good World Test Championship. I totally agree. It'll be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Hello. Keshav, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I've been on a few channels today talking about the Ashes and which we talked a bit about before. It just seems to be still gnawing away. Andrew Webster's putting some pressure on Warner talking up, and I think that shouldn't be a smart thing to do. Warner should keep his mouth shut and stay out of this. In fact, I think I've talked to him before. It's best left as it is. They're best leaving alone now. Australia stupidly, Bancroft says something rather off the cuff about the bowlers. Let him say it. Sour grapes, on Bancroft's perspective. He can't. He robbed the bank. He had the banknotes in his pocket. He can't say that he wasn't a part of it. It's a bit like saying, "Oh, the guy, those four guys, they knew about it. Like, get them involved." No. I've got to defend Cricket Australia, and it's certainly they've got a great CEO now, and I think that they need to understand that Cricket Australia are not going to just let's leave it lie. It's not even lying. It's just when I say lie, keeping it down low on the lowdown. The reality is that there's nothing to talk about. Would you agree?
Yeah. If you remember last time when I came onto your channel and we were talking about this, it's kind of like since no on the field cricket is happening, just to be in the headlines, and I don't think Cameron Bancroft now anyway has a future for Australia. Even before this whole thing restarted, I don't think he was ever going to play again for them because there are probably more talented players around, and he doesn't really compares with even Steve Smith or Warner. They were a given that once the ban was lifted, they were always coming back into the team, but the question marks were always over Bancroft's comeback, and now he probably would have seen that I'm not doing anything, I'm not coming back, so this is one way of being in the headlines and drag others into the mud, which is I think it's gonna probably bite back in the arse back again once again for Bancroft.
Oh, look, there's a lot of questions being asked about what Warner's saying, the fact that the four bowlers came out and defended themselves so strongly. The reality is that it looks as though that was all that's ignited the conversation, because I think I may have told you before, there was no doubt there was quite a bit of animosity between the four bowlers and David Warner.
Yeah.
They were very upset because clearly everyone knew what was going on to an extent. Okay? They must have. When the ball was damaged, but that doesn't implicate those four bowlers as being a party to it. They had no choice but to bowl with the ball they had. And I don't even think the damn thing helped them.
Yeah, I think the more we or other people talk about it, they will succeed. People who want to, pull Australian cricket back into this old mud. I think the more it gets the footage, those people will actually succeed in their whatever purpose.
It's very clever, but it's Australian. It's Australian media. It's not overseas media. Overseas media are reporting on it. Yes, but it didn't come from overseas. It came from Australia.
Yeah, and you know what? Once Australia goes to West Indies, their next tour, I think most of the questions will be regarding this rather than the West Indies series.
Well, the most interesting thing is there's been some comments that Warner's on the nose again, that he maybe, well, dropped a pretty hard word, but maybe rested for the West Indies series, along with Pat Cummins. Now, that sounds like a very, strange thing, really. Maybe, I mean, if Dave Warner didn't play because of family reasons, I would get that. If he said that, I would get that. I would understand it. If he was, he's been away from his family already quite a bit. So I would get that. But it's the question going back to Australia versus South Africa, the fact that that was called off, yet they all trundled to India in a COVID, intense environment. So that's hypocritical to start with. If Cricket Australia wanted to be strong enough to stop the team going to South Africa, they should have been strong enough to tell them to go to the IPL.
Yeah, and I don't get the rest part as well. I mean, they are resting for a couple of weeks already, and the series is in July, so they would anyway have got a couple of months rest as well. So I don't really get it. I mean, if you look at Labuschagne, he's already in county cricket playing there, so that's a different case why he's not in the squad. Bubble to bubble thing and all. But Cummins and Warner, who are actually named in the squad, and now people are talking that they might get rested and replaced by somebody else. I think there's much more than what meets the eyes here.
After what happened in the IPL with Warner, I'm pretty sure there were some Australian cricketers that had words with him about that, and it would have ignited discussion. And all the bubbles, they have a lot of time in their hands. In the Maldives, they would have talked about it. It would have come up. People would have asked him, at least people who think they know him would have asked him, what the hell went wrong there? They would have asked him. But Trevor Bayliss, to his credit, put his foot down. And Moody, I'm only gathering that Moody should have just stayed out of it anyway, but he played a very bad role in the whole thing. But the reality is Warner's on the nose for a lot of people at the moment. Yeah. And, yeah, it's Simmers. Ever since Sandpaper, Australia has fallen apart. Now, C. Smith will not be captain for the Ashes. Tim Payne is almost certainly going to be the captain now, especially because of what's happening, but also the way that it was panning out. He'll definitely be captain in the game in Hobart, which is his home state. And the inaugural match against Afghanistan, it's historic on many levels. Great. That's a great publicity for Cricket Australia. So Payne's in. Smith's got a shut up. He's going to be in the team, but he's not going to be captain. Warner, you would argue, would still be there, but if he keeps mouthing off, he may find himself in the out of there too. I think they've had enough of him. Honestly.
Yeah. What about the news that came in that there was some spat between Slater and Warner at Maldives? Do you think there's any truth to it?
I wouldn't be surprised, because Chris Gale was one of the very few that showed what was really happening. He was partying with champagne, buying $200 pizzas, carrying on. Chris Lynn, while Gale was on air talking to his fans, Chris Lynn rocked up in his resort, in his room. Yeah. What's that for quarantine? That's not what quarantine's all about, is it?
Yeah, but I just wonder what the spat would have been about. I mean, Warner has a history. If you remember, he punched Joe Root as well in 2013 Ashes in a bar. So
Slater's not exactly a quiet little chap either. He's got a bit of a hot head to him too. Don't you worry. He's pretty explosive. And I'm sure that somehow the comment about Slater's blood on their hands would have been one, because at least Warner, with some credit, didn't get involved with that crap. I
mean, if Slater can make a comment about Australian PM that he has blood at his hands, if you remember, he made that sort of a comment.
Yeah, that was stupid.
Yeah,
absolutely stupid. I mean, he's embarrassed himself because, as we can see, he's been studying at the Maldives. He knew when he was making those comments. He knew he was going to the Maldives. He knew.
And he also said that I am not even making a single penny out of IPL because I'm leaving early in the middle.
crap. The IPL would have paid 20 grand for the airfares each. So they've chartered an Air Seychelles flight to go Maldives, Malaysia. It's not even the airline. Air Seychelles doesn't even go to Australia, as far as I'm aware. So it was a complete chartered flight. Would have cost 20 grand a person. The accommodation would have cost them 10 grand. The quarantine in Sydney would have been like 3 or 4 grand. The players didn't pay that, and IPL would have paid for the whole lot.
Slater made a comment that since he was leaving IPL actually this was before IPL was called off, so he decided to leave it. So he made a comment that because I quit it in between, I won't make a penny out of this IPL commentating in the games.
Oh, rubbish. Absolute rubbish. What, he went there for free? Rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
Yeah, I'm sure they would have paid some sort of advance as well to all these professionals.
The IPL would have paid everybody handsomely. We know that. I mean, if there's 90 crores, I think it's something like 90 crores per team or thereabouts is their budget. They only spent around 45 crores. So they had they had all that extra money. They would have bought all the islands. They would have paid for the Maldives for a month. They would have paid for the chartered flight. They would have paid for the excess baggage. They would have paid for the bloody quarantining, for the tests.
Even the commentators, I'm sure they get paid handsomely, and
of course they do. Of course they do.
For Slater to say that he didn't make a penny, I thought that was probably a lie.
I mean, that's a complete load of garbage. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I mean, Roshan Abasingh is someone I respect. He's currently gone from Sri Lanka to Bangladesh, right? Now, he is somebody who came on my show for nothing, right? Episodes of my show. Because I know the guy. He's a good friend of mine. But I can assure you, Roshan Abasingh can't afford to go around the world for nothing. He needs to earn money. So he'd be probably paid less than the IPL, but they need to earn money. There's no way Michael Slater's gone there. What idiot would believe him? Come on. What do you think David Warner would go to India for free? No way. I mean, Pat Cummins paid 50 grand to give to the people suffering from COVID, but he made whatever amount of millions he made. So 50 grand was small change. I would argue that all the expenses of the whole 39 on that plane, the plane was chartered by the IPL. The accommodation. Why? Okay. If you're not getting any money, Michael Slater, would you go to the Maldives, you absolute idiot? Are you telling me you would go to the Maldives if you haven't got any money?
I think he was trying to cover up the statement that he made about the PM. So he said people who would call me a hypocrite, that why did you go to IPL in the first place? So he said, I'm not even making a penny because I'm quitting in the middle.
Well, then if he's not making any money, no idiot would go to the Maldives where it's thousands of dollars a night.
Yeah.
Would you? No. Of course not. Of course not. Well, I mean, we all know. And look, I respect the IPL. If they've got the money and they pay for the blokes, great. But we know money talks. The only reason why they got back early was good money talk. Because if we would ask Michael Slater to pay for his own airfares and his own accommodation and his own quarantine, he'd be still sitting in India.
Yeah.
Waiting his turn. Because there's no way he'd do that. So, I mean, who are they kidding?
By the way, coming back to some cricket today, a really good news came that Rahul Dravid might be coaching India and Sri Lanka.
Well, that was expected, though, wasn't it? That's not a shock.
Yeah, I mean, there were names floating around who could be the coach, but for Rahul Dravid to be coaching, I think it also sends across a message that once Ravi Shastri's tenure is over in a couple of years, Rahul Dravid might be the senior team coach as well.
There's no doubt about that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Rahul Dravid would be honoured to coach India, and he would also have integrity about him. and
Yeah.
we'd be able to. He and Ganguly are two of the most finest statesmen by far. They're extremely great people there. We know the way they played cricket is the way they would do that. We know that. So yeah, and well, that may not be on anyway. I mean, Sri Lanka's just gone into complete lockdown.
Yeah.
I have a girl that I'm trying to get onto the show as a host. I've met her. She's in Sri Lanka. The poor thing, her mother's just got COVID. She's very scared because she's upstairs, mother's downstairs. She's very scared, and it's suddenly.
That series is still a couple of months away. I mean, things could get better in that amount of time.
Yeah, but I mean, all cricket in the subcontinent is under scrutiny now, under question. There'll be no World Cup in India this year.
Yeah.
So
even IPL today, there was another news that broke out that BCCI is talking to ECB that they might scrap one test match, 4 instead of 5, and that gives them a little bit of more breathing space so that in September they can host the rest of the IPL in England itself.
They should. They're only watering down the competition even more. They can't. They've got so many games. They've got 31 games left, including the final series. They can't have it anywhere else. They haven't got the time. It'll do it. It'll be more embarrassing. They really should have the guts to say, right, we're cancelling this year. We've probably postponed it. Now we're cancelling it. There was no result. That would be totally.
But if you see, when England came to India this year, originally there were 5 test matches, but they rescheduled it because it was a T20 World Cup year. So originally there were 5 test matches and 3 T20s. So what they did was they swapped one test match for a couple of extra T20s. So, going the same way now, maybe if they scrap the last test match, which is in Manchester, I think it's starting in the second week of September. So if they scrap that, so 4 tests will end by 6 September, if I'm not wrong. So that means.
So do you really think the ICC is going to want to find a way to finish the IPL off? No, they won't. It's an ICC decision, not a BCCI decision. So I don't think.
Where does ICC come in? Here it's about the 2 bilateral boards, isn't it? It's a bilateral series.
Yeah, but the ICC will not put an IPL like a CPL or a BBL in another country and reduce. No, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure even discussions there, the end result will be that it'll be called off.
I'm not sure about that because you talked about ICC and we all know ICC won't really do anything that would harm BCCI.
But how is the ICC? ICC are not harming anyone. They've got to be realistic. It's not about harming anyone. It's about that there is no time.
Yeah, but I don't think it's ICC's business at all. Whatever bilateral situation is there between India and England, if they agree upon scrapping one test match for rest of IPL in September, I don't think ICC will interfere in that.
But England aren't the only teams involved with the IPL. There are Australian players, there are South African players, there are West Indian players.
Yeah, if things in England are fine, COVID-wise, like county season is going on and there's not been a single case, and if the series between Pakistan and Sri Lanka go as well without any cases, I don't think players would mind going to England for IPL.
Okay, the priority this year is the World Cup. Okay, they have to reorganise that. Okay, so the priority is when that's going to be played, and I can assure you that's going to take priority.
Yeah, that's not going to happen in India for sure. That's in UAE.
Where does the World Cup get played?
UAE.
Well, there's no guarantee there either because UAE aren't exactly swimming with no COVID cases either. In fact, you would argue, but what you're just saying, the smartest thing would be, in my opinion, is to leave everything in England.
To have the World Cup in England?
Have the World Cup in there, if you're going to bring the IPL in there.
But the World Cup window is October, November, and it's snowing in England at that time.
But October, But I mean, no, but you've just said to me that they're going to play the IPL there.
I'm sure they will in September. They will make it happen somehow.
But what you're saying is then you're pushing the fact that the World Cup would have to happen somewhere else and not in India. That the players that are in England, if they all go there, have to then go somewhere else to play the World Cup.
Yeah, so see, World Cup begins only on 26th October, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, but you're forgetting quarantine. You're forgetting all the rules of quarantine. There's multitudes of layers of quarantine issues that you're not factoring in, right? Especially getting Indian players out of India into England for one. Then the players from India won't be able to go back home to India because they'll only fall back into the whole pattern of the whole problem. Okay, your priority at this point in time is the World Test Championship next month. Then the series all over the world, which is happening, which includes India versus England. They're the ones that we're talking about first. The World Cup's the next. The IPL is then below all those because they've already had half of the games played and they've been able to have the luxury of having half. You could have argued they could have finished earlier than that. I still maintain the IPL would be better off just cancelling them. Why? Because
look, if they have enough double headers, then I think they will have the window. Because your argument was if the World Cup is in UAE and they have to follow the quarantine protocol. So for example, the first game is on 26th of October, and at best, even if you look for a 10-day quarantine, that means that at least teams should be there by 10th of October.
Yeah, but okay. What about normal conditions of resting and normal conditions of, getting to having the ability to have fairness between all the teams? Some teams will be distinctly disadvantaged because India will not be able to go home.
Yeah, there's no need to go home because a lot of teams and a lot of players would be flying to England for the IPL. And mind you, before that, CPL is also going to be happen. And CPL is ending only
I haven't seen any evidence anywhere of anyone actually making a decision that even contemplates putting the IPL in England with any certainty. Okay, I haven't seen that with great certainty. There's no one saying, "Well, this is our preferred option at this point."
No, I've seen a couple of very authorized and authentic news reports on Sports Thug itself. Vikrant Gupta just last night he reported that there have been backdoor negotiation between ECB and BCCI for one
I'm
test.
not saying there. No one's saying there isn't backroom discussions, but even Sports Tech, and Brian Majun has talked about this as well. There's obviously an attempt to keep people interested in the IPL as long as possible, meaning they'll keep talking about alternatives until the cows go home. The reality is that it's unlikely to happen. That's the reality. You can talk all you want about what if this, what if that, but the reality is it's very unlikely that it's going to happen at all.
See,
and it's not a shock, is it?
I mean, look, there was a report which said if IPL is not finished this year, there will be apparent losses of around 2,500 crore. So, given the amount of money,
2,500.
Yes, and given the amount of money involved, I think BCCI would be hell bent on somehow completing this, even if it requires a double header every single day. I think you are here, I am here, all these people are here. Be it September in England or be it in UAE just before the World Cup, BCCI would find a window. I think they won't let this go easily.
Well, it's less and less likely they can do it in England as well, by the way. It'll have to be the UAE. Okay?
No, with England, the one benefit is Indian players and England players won't have to go elsewhere for quarantining. So they would already be there. And another positive is, by the time India's fourth test is finishing, if they scrap the fifth one, so by the time India and England are playing that series, the rest of the players who are not playing anywhere, they can come and finish their quarantine as well. So if the fourth test match ends by 6th of September, they can probably start IPL there by the 15th or something, or finishing the quarantine. And
okay. I'm just
That's
wary
still
of going.
a month before the
I'm
World
wary
Cup.
about going. No. Okay, you got your way of saying it. I'm not knocking what you're saying, but the reality is, at the moment, no one can promise or surmise anything because COVID's so bad in India. It's still in parts of England. It's certainly gotten better, but there's no guarantee it's not going to flare up again, especially as it comes to the latter part of summer, which is this would have to be. When are you saying it'll be on September?
See, we have to rule out India because neither IPL is
India's
happening.
gone. India's gone.
Yeah. IPL or
Gone.
World Cup, both India should be ruled out. For IPL, I'm saying my argument is you have to factor in other things as well. The other series which would be going on. England has to play Pakistan in Pakistan. I mean, I don't think now they will be playing there because of COVID, maybe UAE itself. So they have a couple of T20s, I think on around 10th and 12th October. And they also have to play a couple of T20s against Bangladesh. So, and Ashley Giles actually said that England won't sacrifice those series because of IPL. So players would not be available for the whole IPL. And then there will be CPL, which will be finishing only in the third week of September or fourth week of September. So these things.
I'd be happy if the IPL was played in Australia and the BBL was bumped. I'd be happy. Look, I'm really not in a position to talk about where the IPL will be. It seems to me pretty obvious that India's not getting it. We know that. Okay, that's pretty clear. So the options are going to be UAE, number one, England potentially two, and that's it.
I think for me, England is the number one choice right now because Indian players would be already there. The big star players should be there. That's why I think that's the first choice.
So where have you seen this article again?
Sorry?
You've only heard people talking about it on Sports Tech, correct? You haven't actually seen an article.
I've seen a couple of people on Twitter as well talking about it. And I think this wouldn't be a bad idea if they scrap one test match because they did so in the India-England series, which happened in India just recently. One test match was scrapped for a couple of extra T20s. So if there is that reciprocation happening in England, I don't think that would be a bad idea if that serves the purpose and IPL can be completed over there.
Yeah, okay. I'm not going to dispute that at this point in time. I just think it's unlikely. That's all. I think at this point that you're going to have to mount a case that this. Let's just take into account the Australians and the West Indies. Now, West Indies are playing a whole host of games in the West Indies. They're playing Bangladesh. They're playing Sri Lanka. They're playing.
They're not playing Bangladesh. They're playing South Africa, Pakistan, and England.
Okay, well, they're playing three. Okay, I'm just saying they're playing so many people. Sri Lanka's in Bangladesh. Okay, West Indies are playing England. You said England, Pakistan, and South
West
Africa.
Indies is playing South Africa, Australia, and Pakistan, and then CPL.
Okay, so what I'm getting at is, are the West Indies players going to have the time to play an IPL at that time?
So see, their international series would be over by August, and in September they are playing the CPL, which gets. I'll just check when it gets over.
Well, a lot of the IPL players are actually playing in the ODI T20 series, aren't they? Against Australia.
Yeah, so CPL gets over on 19th of September. So by the time West Indies player come in and, even if they have the quarantine for a week in England, that means 26th of September.
Gee, I tell you what, it's going to be one hell of a schedule. If they're going to pull this off, it's going to take a lot of doing. And
yeah,
I tell you what, there's going to be some players, some Australian players, I would argue will drop out. I reckon Pat Cummins and Dave Warner will both drop out.
But don't you think the IPL happening before World Cup would be a good preparation for the World Cup?
Not if they're already tired when they go into it. No.
Because before that, Australia is only supposed to play West Indies in a limited over series, and if Warner and Pat Cummins are rested from there as well, then I think it would make sense if they play IPL and get some match practice before World Cup.
Well, maybe the fact that they're both not going to make themselves available, or they're going to be rested for the West Indies series that's coming up, may explain a bit of that. Who knows? Look, I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to debunk what you're saying, because I've got to. It's just, if it happens, good luck to them, because it's going to take a hell of a lot of stars to align in the right spot for it to happen. And you have to agree that's going to be pretty hard to imagine.
Yeah, and another problem is they might have to sign a few new players as well, because if CPL is happening at that time, that means West Indies player would not be available for the whole of IPL. Then if England is going to play Pakistan and Bangladesh, that means England players are not available. So that the rejig means a lot of players who went unsold, or who were not in the auction, they might have to get signed as well.
Yeah, okay. Is there any truth to the fact that Jofra won't play against India?
I don't know. I mean, there was news that he won't be playing in the New Zealand series, but I'm not sure about India series, because India series is in August, which is 3 months away. So,
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure Jofra Archer's injury is chronic, not just a small. When it's chronic, he could lead down the track of having to give up cricket altogether.
One thing is for sure, he won't be playing the IPL. Even if he's fit, I think England wouldn't risk him, because they would want him in the World Cup.
All right. I'm not surprised that Jofra Archer's out. He's definitely out of the IPL. The World Test Champ. Well, he's not. Well, he wasn't playing that. Anyway, what are you saying? He's not playing. We're only talking at this point about his availability for anything IPL related or domestic related, because there is no international cricket. Against New Zealand, yes, which is just next week or 2 weeks away, whatever it is. He won't play in that.
Yeah.
But he may still be ready for the series against India. We'll see. But it looks like I'll grant what Ray's saying. He's saying that it's out. I'm not sure, but please don't take me wrong a bit. Sports tack is not necessarily the be-all and end-all of news, is it?
I mean,
they have a lot of scandalous stuff that goes on too. There's a lot of scandals that are talked about with it, which I've seen as fact, and they end up being that way. All right. I know when I was in Sydney and the Mohammed Siraj incident happened, a lot of that was based on what someone like I was saying. And people would go off and say it was facts, but I only had what I had. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Shreya Gayatri saying IPL might go to Malaysia. Well, that would be a bit of a coup for Malaysia, I'll tell you what. But Malaysia's also really bad with COVID. They've gone through the roof as well.
PSL is also finally happening. So, that will give us an idea, if it's happening in UAE, it will give us an idea of the bubble situation and the COVID situation there, kind of an audition for World Cup maybe.
Look, it's going to be take one step at a time, watch month to month. No one can predict anything really at this point for September, let alone August, let alone even perhaps July. We can plan for it, we can engineer that things happen in the way that we want to, but there's no guarantee that any of this, we're really are surmising. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And that's so India versus Sri Lanka, is that there was some discussion about that being postponed as well. And isn't there some aspect of that? Something was there. Was there an under-19s version of that? It was something that went on that was Stay was saying. I mean, at the moment, Sri Lanka are on total lockdown.
Yeah.
So that doesn't improve. No one's going to be going to the country.
I think right now West Indies is quite lucky in that way. They don't have they don't have a lot of population, not much cases. 3 top class teams going there for playing bilateral series, and then CPL happening.
In all fairness, if you played the IPL matches in Darwin, even during winter, you'd have a pretty damn good set of conditions.
Yeah, even New Zealand for that matter. I mean, that's another country which is COVID free. So,
I mean, New Zealand but New Zealand would be considerably colder at the time of the year we're talking about. So that's unlikely. The only possibility is at Darwin, which is subtropical.
And just one menu for the whole IPL.
Oh, there's more than one. There's more than one.
So that's not a cold region at that point of time.
But it's not. No, it's not. I mean, you could have northern, as in Darwin. You could also have northern Queensland. So there's some grounds there where Bangladesh and that size that have played in the past. It's not impossible, especially if there's no crowds. They wouldn't care, would you? If they haven't got stands, it's not going to be of any issue. The reality is that 4,000 people will be allowed to attend the World Test Championship. That's been announced, which is a great little bonus for Indian fans that may want to go to the World Test Championship, because I'm sure there won't be many New Zealand fans there. So I'm talking about people who are locally there, because it'll have to be Indians that live in England.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure more Indians live in England than New Zealanders.
Yeah. Oh no, there's probably a fair few. Actually, having said that, there's probably a few New Zealanders. Well, they may be home now. They probably aren't hanging around there. But a lot of English are Indian born, so Indian background. So yeah, I would ask that. That's probably the case. If audiences get used to the IPL player roster, they will be underwhelmed by the big background roster. Fair point. Future cricket stadium would need to be built with hotels in the house. That makes a lot of sense. What Zara said there makes a lot of sense. Why don't they consider having more grounds with? Because Adelaide Oval's got a hotel, beautiful hotel. The SCG, well, it hasn't, but it could. You could imagine that they could. I think that's quite clever.
Yeah. What about the Ashes schedule that came out? Did you think that the day-night test was always going to be happening at Adelaide? Because once they played at Brisbane as well, isn't it, against Pakistan?
Yeah, I mean, they could play in Sydney, they could play in Perth, they could play anywhere, really. It's not.
Why
I don't
Adelaide?
think. Huh?
Why Adelaide always is the first choice?
I don't think there's really a reason for it, to be honest with you. The lighting's superb in Adelaide, definitely, but you can play it on the SCG and MCG as well. I guess it's just giving. I think Australia has to be fair and give not always the big things to Sydney and Melbourne. They probably have to give other states a chance. I mean, Adelaide, Hobart, Brisbane, and Perth are the so-called lesser places. Sydney and Melbourne will always get a test match, but the other grounds could, in some cases, not. So maybe it's more that. But I mean, they're playing Afghanistan and Hobart, which is great for Hobart, great for Afghanistan. Brisbane.
Why does Hobart not get any Ashes test? I mean, I don't remember when was the last time Hobart.
Well, Hobart was not even a test ground. Let's not forget. Until I can't remember what year. It's been a lesser ground always. There's only 5 tests. Remember, so you've got Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane, Perth. That's 5.
Yeah.
So if those 5 grounds have got it for more than 50 years, so it's understandable that you can't have a ground out of that to do it. It's a bit different to India. So it has more than India's got 100 probably they could play.
Yeah.
So they have to revolve it around.
A couple of years ago, Virat Kohli did make a statement that just like Australia has all these grounds with so much of tradition and history, like they know, the opposition teams also know, and the home team also knows that the Boxing Day test is always going to happen at Melbourne. The New Year's test will always happen at Sydney. So he argued that India should also, choose such 5-6 test venues.
I agree.
Yeah, because every season they're shuffling the venues in test match series.
Ahmedabad, Montero Stadium is going to be used for every single tournament that ever comes up. That's almost facts, right? We know that. Wankhede and Kolkata and Chennai should really, and Delhi. Kolkata.
I don't think Delhi would be counted as one of those kind of stadiums, just like Canberra for you guys. I mean, it's not
Is it?
counted.
Okay. All right. Well then, definitely Mumbai, definitely Chennai, definitely Kolkata, and maybe Bangalore. They're probably the four. And now Ahmedabad. They're your five so-called, arguably traditional locations. So it would put some problems on there for Delhi.
Maybe not Bangalore for test matches. Maybe not Bangalore for test matches because there are other options as well. You could go to Hyderabad, which is another.
But I think Bangalore's got more history.
Yeah, then you could argue that even Mohali has got a bit of history as well.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no doubt about that. The five that I'm, from my knowledge of Indian cricket history at the highest level, Kolkata, Chennai, Mumbai, and Bangalore were the ones that were always the case, and Delhi now. They're really the main five. I think.
Yeah, I think they should just shortlist 6-7 venues and just like if you are playing Afghanistan at Hobart or I think one season when South Africa and Pakistan were visiting in 2016, South Africa got Hobart Test match. So that way, if India has a couple of teams visiting, and there is a marquee series, and then there is a kind of a less hyped series against a lesser opponent, they could play at these other venues.
Okay, but I mean, look, I'm not a decision maker for Indian cricket, but I would argue they probably do put it pretty thinly sometimes around. I think that I know they want to. I don't think they need to gain more spectators. I think they've got enough spectators around India, so it's not a matter of where like a Hobart needed a chance. I don't think it's like that. I think it's. I would agree with honestly keeping the five that I've mentioned to you.
Yeah, and we're talking about the test matches because not the white ball. White ball can happen anywhere. There is Dharamshala, there is Nagpur, there is Rajkot, so many grounds. Pune is such a beautiful ground.
Dharamshala is the best in terms of backdrop. Oh my god!
You've been there?
No, I haven't been there, but I've seen it. I was very close. I mean, I went to all the areas surrounding, but not to that ground. And there was a game on. I think last time Australia played there that I missed. I was very, very disappointed. I was upset with myself because I wanted to see it. But there'll be a day I'll see a match there before too long. But I've seen all that. I've been to Chennai, Kolkata, Bangalore, Delhi, and Mumbai. I've been to all the major grounds. So
yeah. So Ashwini is saying he's working at Dharamshala. He works there.
Who?
Ashwini, you remember?
I work at. Okay. Is he your friend?
Hmm.
Right. Okay. Why does Perth always get a rough deal in Australian cricket? To not get it? There's a few things. Well, first and foremost, it used to be a very traditional place with the Wacker. It's lost its luster now that it's moved from the Wacker. I'm sorry. It certainly has lost its interest. It's got more of an AFL bent. They're more AFL focused. That's one thing. Plus, the time difference between Perth and Sydney or the East Coast is distinct. It can be 3 or 4 hours, depending on what time of the year, different. Now, that affects broadcasting time slots, to be honest with you. And the logistics of going there is also hard. So Perth, when they gave way to the Wacker, it's a bit like the Sydney Cricket Ground being not used anymore than using some other ground. I tell you what, the Cricket Australia would not be happy with that. It's a bit like that. Even though the new Perth, the new ground at WA,
why did they discard the old Wacker ground? Because
they didn't discard it. It's just that the AFL, who are a major financial force, helped create the other stadium with an AFL fixture in mind. And that's why. I mean, India are playing Australia and women's cricket on the Wacker. It's a beautiful ground.
Both grounds in Perth are functional right now for cricket?
Wacker is, yep. Wacker's being used for the India versus Australia women's test match.
So and the Ashes men's test, where would it be played? The old Perth ground or the new one?
They've pushed for the new.
Yeah, but somebody pointed out that why it always gets a rough deal. But with India, the thing is there are always 4 test matches, not 5.
Okay. Forget India, please. Don't bring in it because India's got 100 grounds you can pick from.
No. He was asking when India visited Australia, they didn't get a test at Perth. So I'm saying that India plays 4 test matches. Last time Brisbane missed out. This time Perth missed out.
It's just a logistical nightmare because Perth, the timing of the Perth test was all wrong for this. Yeah. And when the season was shortened, I'm pretty sure it was the dates of the Perth test that were affected. And now they put Perth on as the last test after Sydney, which is the first time, which they've had to rearrange. So with the introduction of Hobart, as in Bellerive, that created more of a problem that they couldn't have as many matches on the grounds. And it was, I'm pretty sure it was a combination of the changes to the grounds. That was this new stadium coming to play. And these decisions are not made year by year, by the way. They're made 4 or 5 years in advance. So there was a logic to it when they did it, not necessarily now. If that makes sense.
Fixtures are made a few years in advance, but maybe not the venues. Venues are decided a bit later.
No, that's not true. That's not true. Venues are certainly included in that
because in India, it doesn't happen like that. In India, there's a rotation system on venues. Each state cricket board gets their turn. So venues are decided later on.
Don't compare. It's not. Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide have been the mainstay. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're playing more than 3 tests, the other grounds come into play. Okay. Generally, and Hobart and Canberra are rather new additions, and then even Darwin is, even Geelong. So the reality is that T20 and ODIs have brought that into play. Brisbane had issues with the ground at one stage, and Perth had issues with its ground as well. And then the timing of it and the broadcast timing as well are significant factors. So it will always be Perth and Brisbane that are going to have troubles now. Okay?
Yeah.
And if there's an element of rotating it around or something, that's what's going to happen. But in Ashes series, all 5 come on deck. So traditionally, if there's going to be 5 test matches, it won't be Hobart. It'll be Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane, and Perth.
Yeah. Okay. This guy has been asking the same question again and again. I would just answer him so that he doesn't keep spamming with the same comment.
Yeah.
So India is not using Rahul Dravid in the likes of these overseas tour because they tried that in 2017, I think, when Ravi Shastri was reappointed after Anil Kumble was sacked. They did announce Rahul Dravid as batting consultant and Zahir Khan as bowling consultant on overseas tour. But that idea was scrapped because Ravi Shastri wanted to bring in his own team of players. Sorry, the backroom staff. Just like Bharat Arun came, Sanjay Bangar came. So now, they have somebody else as well in that role. The batting coach, Vijay Rathod. So they prefer to have their own guys around them. Just like, if, for example, Mickey Arthur, wherever he goes, when he was with Pakistan, Grant Flower was the batting coach. He went to Sri Lanka, he has continued with Grant Flower as well. So with Ravi Shastri also, they would prefer the guys they have been working around with for so many years before that. So that's why probably Rahul Dravid is not there. But once Ravi Shastri's tenure is over, me and Norman are pretty sure that Rahul Dravid might take over Indian cricket as a coach.
Oh, he's been groomed. It's very obvious. He's been groomed. He's an under-19 coach. He's apparently got 2 positions. That it's not relevant because if he gets to be the head coach of India, he won't be doing both. Let's not over that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that guy, the integrity is such that guy chose under-19 and India A coaching over IPL coaching, which is more glamorous, more paying. But still, he went for the other one.
He's a decent guy. So is Ganguly. The BCCI is in better hands because of Ganguly. No doubt. He is extremely intelligent, but he's also very fair. and he has no personal gain other than he's in Kolkata.
Yeah.
So they're going to get a bit of the benefit, but there's no. I mean, in the IPL, Kolkata didn't get a Guernsey because the games were cut short.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, look.
So there's a question for you: why Cameron Green is not selected in the Australian squad for West Indies?
Well, for starters, he's more of a Test player at this stage. He's earmarked as a Test player over ODI and T20, and they've got a pretty good set of all-rounders in the squad, haven't they? So, really in pecking order: Moses Enriques, Dan Christian, Glenn Maxwell, who should be called an all-rounder. Ashton Agar. There's quite a few that are ahead of him in the short version of the match. Test match is a different story.
So see, this guy is now questioning Vikram Rathor's role as the Indian batting coach. He's saying that hardly any Indian batsman has corrected the flaws, but I would disagree. I mean, Norman, the way Indians batted in Australia, and Vikram Rathor was the coach. In one of the interviews with Ashwin on his channel, he said, we started planning for that tour in June, July itself, talking on Zoom calls and WhatsApp groups. So the way people like Pant batted, the way Shubman Gill batted over there, even Hanuma Vihari and Ashwin themselves in that partnership, newcomers like Washington and Shardul, the way they batted, I think Vikram Rathor, the batting coach, is doing his job, isn't it?
Absolutely. He was fantastic. I wouldn't let him go anywhere near. He would always be there.
Yeah.
So
he replaced Sanjay Bangad. Sanjay Bangad was the previous batting coach, so he replaced him. And the other people who were in contention who applied for that role, who? It was Mark Ramprakash from England and Jonathan Trott from England. They both actually applied as well.
Yeah, well, that's. I mean, Ramprakash is probably he's got very good credentials in county cricket, to be honest. But I mean, when you look at Patel from New Zealand being the spin coach for England, that's a bizarre one. That's really bizarre.
Maybe they made him the coach because he's played more county cricket than cricket for New Zealand itself.
Yeah, he must have had some grounding there coaching wise, because I don't know. He was a bizarre one, and I actually didn't think he did that. He didn't. I mean, Leach and Best bowled pretty well, but it wasn't because of this Patel guy, I can assure you.
Actually, England is also rotating the coaches. If you saw the news, so the ODI series would be one would be coached by Graham Thorpe and the other one by Paul Collingwood.
Yeah, but ultimately Silverwood's overarching there, and he's a great coach. And my good old mate, the bloke that you know as well now, what's his name? Oh, good old Alan Mullally knows Chris Silverwood very, very well, and says he's. So I'm trying to get Chris on the show via Alan. We'll see what he can do.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, I would be looking forward to that interview.
But that would be something that Alan would have to do, because Alan's a close mate of his. So I'll leave it in Alan's shoes. So we'll see whether they can do that.
What about Mickey Arthur? Can you get an interview with him?
Yeah, he's. I've also tried to get a hold of him. He's got some commitments, but it's a long year. One thing I've learned: I don't want to throw all my eggs into one basket all at once. I mean, Shane Watson, someone else I'm pretty close to getting, because he's involved with a good friend of mine here in Sydney in his coaching. And a guy called Neil DaCosta, who you may have heard of. He was the brains behind Labuschagne. Actually, he's a great coach, Neil DaCosta. He's based here in Sydney. He's had a lot of very good batters around Australia that go to him for updates. And of course, Adam Hollyoak was the batting coach for Queensland. Shouldn't be sneezed at. But Adam made it pretty clear he only wants to get involved with Test cricket. He's not really into the IPL, which I have to respect. He's also got a boxing empire that he's created too.
Yeah,
so he's pretty busy. Great guy. All right, so we've talked about the Dave Warner spat. Still is not out yet, and I mean, there is a fair bit of discussion around the amount of dissension that Dave Warner has created. We saw it in Sunrisers Hyderabad. Even though we know he's a good batter, we get that. He hasn't been in great form for quite some time. Now, he's still one of the first to be picked, but we have to be careful. We're relying on him too heavily. And if we do that and he blows a gasket again, like he's done it already in a few series, it's putting too much. It's a bit like Kevin Peterson. I mean, Kevin Peterson, we all agree, was a great player. But ultimately, he was on the nose with Andrew Strauss and Cook and the like, and they had to get him out of the side, even though deservedly we think he was the more superior batsman. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, if you
For
talk
the good of
about
Australian cricket, we might have to see that change occur. It's pretty sad, but it's true. I think the more Warner starts to lose his form and starts to deteriorate, which I'm not saying he's at that point yet, but he's probably hit his peak.
plus he's also 35, 36, if I'm not wrong. So
yeah, his age is not yet a factor, but this period that he wasn't able to play was pretty significant. That year off has affected him.
The other day I was looking at some stats. So since his comeback after the sandpaper scandal, his strike rates have gone down, but his average has gone up. So I don't know if it's a conscious change that he has made in his gameplay, but he's averaging more after that.
Well, he's certainly more. I would argue he's somewhat more conservative in the way he bats. I don't think he's devil may care as he used to be, which is fair enough. The reality, he's 35 this year. Ashwani's saying, I'm pretty sure he's still got. I mean, look, 35 is no longer past it. I mean, we see Gale still playing 41. I mean, I don't think Warner's past it. He's just not going to be at his best, but he needs to be able to play.
I don't think we can compare like that with Gale. Like, for example, I think Michael Clark finished playing at 34. Even Graham Smith.
And Cook, too.
Yeah.
Okay. Take a step back. Warner, what he should be doing is dropping the formats. If he wants to continue his test career, if that's the most important thing to him now, he can still play IPL, but go back to just playing test cricket and not play IPL. ODI and T20. Then that's a smart move.
Yeah.
That's what Warner's next step has to be. He has to consider his future in the short format if he wants to belong in his test format.
I think he's lucky in a way that the next 6 test matches for Australia is in Australia. Because if it was elsewhere, he struggled in England in test matches. He struggled in India, subcontinent conditions. He has only made runs mostly in South Africa and Australia. So the next 6 games are in Australia. But then again, mind you, the England attack, especially Archer, he was his nemesis last time in the Ashes. And we are playing the first game at Brisbane, where we all know it's a bowling-friendly venue. And then the next one is the pink ball test. So I don't think it's going to be easy, but given that they are in Australia, that gives them the best chance of, getting his place back without any questions.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I'm pretty sure his first goal is to reach 100 tests. I'm pretty sure. I know that he spoke at some stage earlier about that very fact, and I was just checking how many tests he's actually played. He'd be up around. I think he's around 70 or 80 odd. So he's probably, would like to see that happen. So if that happens, he'll prioritize test matches, I think, because he's played enough ODIs and T20s to sink a ship, especially if you include the IPL.
Even Steve Smith and Warner, I don't think there would be a lot of difference in the test matches, the number of test matches they both have played.
Well, he's actually, and who?
Steve Smith and Warner, I don't think there would be a lot of difference.
Smith has played considerably less, actually.
How less?
Warner has played 86 test matches.
Okay.
So that means I would argue he's got 14. There's a serious thing about between Australians that they want to play 100 tests. Right? That's their big deal. I get that. I mean, 86 is not bad either, but he's probably going to play 6 test matches coming up, which means he gets to 92. So
and after that, Australia's touring India, so add 4 more.
Yeah, so he's pretty quickly going to be 90 odd. So he would have been 100. He would have been close to 100 if he played his previous period, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and South African test matches were cancelled, so I think they might get rescheduled next year sometime.
Steve Smith has played 77.
Yeah, so not a lot of difference. 9 test matches.
It's enough difference. It's close to 10. That's enough.
Yeah, but then Smith is also, I think, a couple of years younger to him, so he would play. Smith can arguably play actually 150 test matches for Australia.
He won't though.
He's what, 31?
Yeah, I think he's 31, 32 almost. He's got a few years to go. Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, not forget that Steve Smith was dropped after being picked as a leg spinner. He batted in the lower order. He's had an amazing career, really.
Yeah.
He's batting 8.
Just yesterday I was seeing this this comment. Not a comment, like it was a stat which came out. So the 2010 T20 World Cup, if you remember, that happened in West Indies. Steve Smith was the second highest wicket taker in that tournament.
Yeah.
The first one was Dirk Nannes, and Steve Smith was joint second with 11 wickets.
It's funny, isn't it? He should really be. Yeah, it's hard to work out what happened there, but it's worked out well for him, whatever he's done.
And I think Australians will never forget that World Cup, because Mike Hussey scoring 24 of Saeed Ajmal in that over. That bizarre game.
So there's something about uploading Kane Williamson's press conferences. I haven't been doing that with New Zealand stuff because, not that I don't want to, but I don't want to just follow what other people do. I think press conferences are good to observe, but they're not really. I'm not interacting. If I was asking the questions, yeah, which by the way I can do. I actually am allowed to do that. I'm actually part of that group that can ask questions. I just don't do that, but I should be more active in that.
There's this another question, Norman. Who are your upcoming 4 youngsters who might take the place of Kohli, Kane, Root, and Smith?
In the world, or just in Australia?
Yeah, in the world. The Fab 4.
I'd have to say, I still think Gill will be there. Whether he bats at 4 or 5, or 3 or 4, I'm not sure, but I still think Jason Sanger, he's not there yet, but when he comes through, his batting technique is incredible. His batting style is incredible. He has got when he bats at the top level, he'll show his wares and he'll score big centuries. So I still think Jason.
His brother was named in the Australian squad.
No, it's not his brother.
Okay.
Tanvir Sanger is not his brother.
Okay.
Just another Indian. No, so Jason Sanger for sure. In my opinion, I'd say Gill will come through. Prithvi Shaw still floating around. Are we talking about Test cricket now?
No, I mean these Fab 4 are quite consistent in all formats, isn't it? Kohli, Root, Williamson.
Let's stick with Test cricket though. Okay, so Gill/Shaw in India, Sanger in Australia. Again, these all 3 were dominant now to 19 circuit. Then you've got New Zealand. They've got this Will Young. He's an opening batter. He's good stuff, by the way. He's just done well in the county cricket. Apparently, he's earmarked to be a star. So that's 3. In England, well, I mean, Root's got a few years to go still, but
Ollie Pope.
Ollie Pope has. bit of it loose. He hasn't quite reached his potential yet. There's word that they say that. But there is another bloke from England that's doing really well too. I mean, Zach Crawley hasn't shown his wares yet either. You could see that he might.
I think you went a couple of generations ahead. I was thinking more like Babar Azam, Marnus Labuschagne. These guys might be the next Fab Four. The ones you told, they might be next to next Fab Four, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, Babar Azar, he's already there. Okay, he's already there. Labuschagne looks on paper like he's going to be, but I still want to see him go through a failure stage before I start commenting on him.
He is failing in county this season.
Yeah, he may be on it. Well, okay, we'll see how he comes back from that. That'll be important. But then we're talking about there's not a lot that are really sticking. I mean, there's plenty in India. India's got 2 or 3.
Yeah. KL Rahul, do you see him becoming a test star later on?
KL Rahul, no.
Because, just like how Rohit Sharma's test career has been rejuvenated once again, do you think KL Rahul can do it in test matches?
I at this stage, no. I think he's been pigeonholed as an ODI T20 player, to be honest with you. No, I don't see that happening. Hardik Pandya's got his days could be numbered as well.
Yeah. I think
especially from test cricket, yes.
From Australia, maybe Cameron Green, because he's got a fabulous record in first class.
As an all-rounder you're talking about, or as a leading batter?
As a batter also, I mean, I think he averages, 56?
Yeah, he looks good, yep. But they're putting him as a bowler as well. So there's an issue there about his position in the side. He's not going in as a specialist number 4 batter. He's going in there as an all-rounder. So he won't bat high, at least not traditionally. I mean, Shane Watson was the only person that batted high because he stomped his feet long enough and he got to be a higher order batsman. You would argue Shane Watson shouldn't have been there either. But
even this guy, this guy from West Indies, Shea Hope, he started well, but then test matches he's been average. ODI has still been doing good.
Oh, he's still a good player. Hetmeyer has probably got more going for him, I think.
No, I think I rate Nicholas Pooran more than Hetmeyer, regardless of the failed IPL season. But I think we are forgetting South Africa. I mean, do you see anyone over there?
I've got no faith in South Africa at the moment. They've got some issues politically and environmentally, and they've got a whole mess going on there. So Markham, they're mentioning here, he's won. Yes, he's won. They've got a few players, but they've got no one really leading the pack there. They've got an awful void. They got rid of. I like
the look of Yaneman Malan. He's a pretty good, solid opener. So he might be the one. Yaneman Malan, and the opener
from England.
No, from South Africa. He recently opened with Markram in the series against Pakistan.
I don't know much about him, so I can't comment.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit early to be real. I mean, not early. It's still. But Jason Sang is the one from Australia to watch. If he gets an open door, he gets a chance. Bang. He's got the ability to score big centuries on a regular basis, and he's gone very against England, against Pakistan, against Sri Lanka. I think South Africa. He's got centuries against the touring best 11.
We forgot Sri Lanka as well. Do you see anybody there? Kusal Mendes, maybe Sri Lanka? Kusal Mendes?
Well, if you speak to, there's a few players that are floating around there, but they've got a board issue. Now that Dinesh Chandimal and Angela Matthews seem to have moved on, it might open up some spots for these players.
No,
there are a few.
We are talking about test matches, so I think Chandimal and Matthews might still be a part of test squad.
I don't think so.
Okay.
They're not young anymore, those two. I'll tell you now. There's a lot of Sri Lankan players. There's a lot of pound for pound great Sri Lankan young blokes out there. They're never going to be.
This new guy.
They haven't got a Sangakkara or a Jayawardeneh. That's the problem.
I think this one new guy who made a debut against West Indies got 100 on debut. I think Pathum Nissanka. He from Sri Lanka. He could be one to look out for.
Yeah, well, we need someone to come out and really stand out, don't we? Because they've been lacking a leader as well. So,
what about bowlers? We didn't talk about bowlers. Who do you see as the
in
next?
the world,
Yeah.
I would have said Jai Richardson, but not for the IPL purposes. He's not a bad bowler, but for Australia, that is. Oh, there's a whole heap of South African young blokes coming through too. The bowling's not the problem for South Africa. It's their batting which is the problem. Their bowling seems to be okay. England, well, they've got a whole lot as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
If you look, they've got a lot coming through. But India is probably the most promising.
Yeah, with India, I think Avesh Khan is there. Then there is Karthik Tyagi. So we have a few.
There's a heap. There's a heap going through.
New Zealand.
All right.
Do you see anybody? Because Southie and
Jamison, and there's a few that are coming through New Zealand as well. They've always been. New Zealand's never been lacking of bowlers, have they? They've been always one of their strengths is bowling for sure.
Yeah.
All right, we might call it quits there. I think we've probably had enough of a go.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Kesha. I really appreciate it. All right, everyone. This is Norman Cossack. We've talked a lot today about what is lingering about the so-called scandal again with the Sandpaper gate. We've talked about the whole Warner scenario. We've talked about aspects of the WTC, aspects of the future of cricket, which Kesha brought up towards the end there. But I think the most important thing is that I hope they don't try to fit too many matches into a very short space of time. I hope the IPL gets its place, but if it doesn't, it won't matter. I hope the World Cup gets sorted as well, but that's what I have to wait and see. But WTC is getting closer to us. I'm on tomorrow night with good old Chris Vernon. We'll be talking in Aussie and Pom. Trying to get Monty Pan stuff that as well. We'll see how we go. All right, guys. There's a question that is, I should talk about that, is Shreya Gayatri is asking, after Ashwin and Sundar, you would argue it's going to be Sundar or Axar Patel. They've not got a problem there with spinners either. So,
yeah.
And of course, bowlers, my God. India's not lacking bowlers, that's for sure.
Jacob Duffy, another option for New Zealand, Ashwini brought up.
Yep.
Okay, thank you,
all right, guys.
Roman, for having me on.
My pleasure. All right, I'll say goodbye to you now. Kesha, you can go to sleep or do whatever you want to do.
No, it's not sleeping time. It's only 8:45 p.m.
That's sleeping time for me.
Okay, good night.
All right. Ciao. I'll do a bit of a monologue to finish. That was good to have Kesha. It was always good to have him on. He's a very knowledgeable young man, and I'm glad to have him on. As far as what we've got to do here, we're finished now, guys. So we've done our bit. In much as India lacked a fast bowling around, that's true. You mentioned that before. We have, ever since the days of Kapil Dev and the like, maybe even Zahid Khan. So next time, take you Ashwani Rana. We'll see. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks again for your time. We seem to have had a rather quiet show today. It's been quiet. Steve Orr book. If you haven't bought that, get it. steveorr.com.au. It's well worth it. It's an amazing book. There'll be ones, the spirit of cricket, India, England, Australia, even Afghanistan, even Bhutan, some of the countries he's mentioned. So looking pretty good, if you ask me. All right, guys. Just trying to work out. Yeah, we've had a lack of people, so that's right. All right. I'll talk to you soon. This is Norman Cossack saying goodbye from Eyes on Cricket. Now, if you're there out there and you haven't subscribed yet, it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. It helps me as a channel get that level up. So please spread the word. I keep asking you. I really would appreciate it if you were to spread the word around, let people know about this channel by way of your WhatsApp groups, whether your friends, family, colleagues, whatever it might be, and have that sort of, so we can actually start to grow, continue to grow, I should say, not start, but continue to grow. All right, guys, it's time to say goodbye. So again, Norman Kostek for Eyes on Cricket. Subscribe, view, like, and share. Spread the word, especially on WhatsApp. Thank you.